Hi Macaulay, I'm going to read through your report like we do when we're sat together, but while I'm not in the lesson, what I want you to do is act on the targets I give you, and I'm also going to give you an overall grade as well, alright? And every time I give you a number, that will be relevant to a target that you will need to act on, okay? In this report, so well done for that. In this report, I'll be analysing if hazardous events can only be managed effectively if they are predicted beforehand. Brilliant, reworded the question. A tectonic hazard is a hazard that results in the movement of the Earth's crust or mantle. Reference Brill. Management strategies are the policies and ideas used to minimise or reduce problems. Adams and Holmes. Remember a capital A for someone's name, okay? But well done, both referenced. For this report, I will structure my report to best suit the question by splitting up my analysis into 3 paragraphs. Not 3 paragraphs, because you'll write more than 3 paragraphs, but 3, just put sections, okay? Effective hazard management before the event is predicted, effective hazard management during the predicted event. Well, that's quite difficult because sometimes you can't predict them, such as an earthquake, so that section needs rewording. So you could put effective management during an event and effective hazard management after an event. I'll have a look as you've written it if those match, but then you kind of isolate yourself because you need to do all tectonic hazards, okay? This will best allow myself to determine whether effective hazard management is only possible when events can be predicted. Just as kind of a note here for the actual exam, you're going to have to think really hard about how you're going to subset it down, because if your description of your paragraph doesn't suit the question, you could leave yourself wide open to go back down to a C, alright? In this report, I will be using the Disaster Management Cycle Model, SNIF 96, as seen in Figure 1. Good, you've related it into the figure, okay? You could put Figure 1.0, alright, be pedantic. I will be using this method as it best shows how an affected region manages a hazard through stages before, after and during a tectonic hazard. You could put regardless if predicted or not, because you will then be analysing how effective it is for an earthquake, tsunami or a volcano, okay? Right, so your management cycle, a diagram. Right, tell me what preparedness is and rehabilitation. Just do a really quick sentence, alright? You've put mitigation the wrong way round. It should be preparedness, relief, rehabilitation, then mitigation, okay, in the actual model. So be really careful, put that as your second target, not to get your model wrong, okay. The case studies I will base my analysis on before the event is predicted before the event includes Sendai, Japan and Kilauea, Hawaii. I will be using these 2 case studies as they both have vast hazard predictability technologies in place before they were struck with hazard events. Okay, so you could link to wealth. So they both are forerunners and a scientific researching like stations or states, especially in the case of Kilauea before. And you can also say here that it's also a volcano and an earthquake. And don't be afraid to kind of tell them a little bit about the story before you get there. So you could tell them that earthquake can't be predicted, however they do extremely well due to the prediction technology such as seismographs. Okay, so tell them a little bit more, don't be too wishy-washy. For my analysis of the effective hazard management during the event, I will be using the case study Merapi, Indonesia in 2010. This is because Merapi had effective management to some extent without actually predicting the event in the first place. careful Macaulay, they did predict it. It was a volcano and they knew it was going to erupt. That's why they put the evacuation zones in, and then also were able to evacuate 400,000 people. The downside was that people went back. They didn't listen to them. The president said that he would buy or give them money to stop people going back to their animals that were in the field. Be really careful there, okay? And then finally, for my analysis of effective hazard management, we'll just write number 3. So you know to change the during event bit. For analysis of effective hazard management after an event that was not predicted, I will be using the Indian Ocean Tsunami with the Niragon volcanic eruption case study. Niragongo was predicted by Mr. Wufala, but they didn't act on it, so be really careful with your exact descriptions. I'll be using these as both countries have low DPs, meaning they have little prediction management at their hazardous events that affect their effective management. Tell them if it's a volcano. Oh, you have done, sorry. Right, so the final one, careful with Niragongo. They had no salience, one of the poorest countries in the world. They had really bad rehabilitation and relief. So even though it could be predicted, Wufala did predict it, they had really poor management strategies. So be careful how you interpret the question here. Alright, some of this information is a little wrong. Alright, but if we go to intro to finding and focusing on the question, you do a clear title and you do develop a focus. You do framework by the case studies, but some of the case studies still need to be tied to the question better. Accurate definition is key term, you do. I'm stuck between 6 to 8 and 9 to 10 because it says some framework, but you do a framework. Focus either by concept or case studies. Right, what I'll do is, because the focus on the case studies is not your best it has been, I'm going to have to put you back into 8. Okay? Methodology 1.1, boom, well done. In this report I'll be using a range of case studies from a range of renowned sources in order to back up my analytic response. I have used the United States Geological Survey website to research about the IoT case study. This is a reliable source that is funded by the United States government. I used geo fact sheets to research the Niragongo volcanic eruption, why some volcanoes are more hazardous than others. This is a reliable source of as publications are peer reviewed by reputable scientists. Okay, you made a good start. I know where you're going and I know you'll learn it because you're amazing. Alright, so yeah, good effort on the methodology. Analysis. Right, what is going wrong without using a capital letter at the start of a sentence, dude? You have to. To get full marks on written communication and sourcing, you need to use capital letters, regardless if it's the start of a sentence or for a name. I can't keep telling you. You're going to lose marks for that, okay? Hazard management is most effective when a hazard event is predicted and prepared for. In this section I will compare the Sendai earthquake and the tsunami that occurred on the 11th of March 2011 with a 9 magnitude event, earthquake and a 10 metre high tsunami, with the ongoing volcanic eruption Kilauea, Hawaii, that first started erupting in 1983 with a VI of 0 to 1. Okay, so we said where. Could we do any plate names? Could we talk about subduction zones, hazard profile, and also examples of management before? So we've got tilt meters, size monitors. Okay, so you said where, and you told me that management is before, but give me an example of how they do it in the world. Okay, so we'll use that as number 5, your target. Both these locations in which these events occurred in the high-income countries with a very high GDP. Hawaii has a GDP of 47,580, or 3, I think 5 or 3, one of them, while Japan has a GDP of 37,000, 5 trillion economy. These countries' huge wealth has allowed them to be able to afford hazard prediction through prediction technology, as well as increase their effective housing management with plans to being in place before, and in Japan allowing for plans to implement and put in place just 20 minutes after the tsunami struck. Careful of your spelling here. Struck. Sendai with 3,000 have been deployed in a similar time. Okay, you haven't given me an example of the technology, so example the technology up there, and then it's come very, so you've got your point, you've explained it, but you've not evidenced the poor old prediction, but then the actual evidence with the plans that they had in place, and then you what possibly could happen, you've then evidenced it with Sendai with 3,000 troops and then the 20 minutes. Okay, what is going on here without the capital letter? Technologies allow Sendai and Kilauea to predict when a hazard may occur and where or how large the eruptions may get at the Kilauea volcano. Seismometers are used throughout Japan, with there being with a total of 1,000 in the country. The seismometers affect tremors in the rocks that give around 3 to 5 seconds warning to people to evacuate or take shelter before the earthquake begins. This information is sent out by text message as soon as it is received. However, the tsunami that followed was predicted with much more time and space, with ocean buoys being used far out to sea to detect a sudden increase in the depth of the sea. Text message alerts and strength then warn people to flee to safe higher grounds. This prediction technology allows for effective housing management by reducing death toll of the areas. Right, well done. This has a lot more kind of meat to it, this paragraph. You've basically said the first paragraph in more detail. So you've used technology, and the first one you've kind of used wealth and then gone on to the plans. You kind of repeated yourself twice. So the first one you could have just said wealth, kept it at that, and then gone straight into technology. Alright, and then also the plans that they have in place. Or you could have used evacuation. Alright, let's have a look. Effective management is also evident when an event is predicted due to the eruption at Mount Kilauea, currently having 0 casualty. Excuse me. Technology is also used to predict the event in Kilauea using geostationary satellites in space that can alert increased heat as magma moves to the surface, as well as seismometers that detect mini earthquakes or seismic activity as magma moves towards the crust up the mantle. Okay, you're given more technology that's available to predict a volcano. In conclusion, capital I. In conclusion, prediction of the event aids management by allowing the right decisions to be made in order for the management to be effective. Management was affected in Sendai, however they suffered such a high death toll of 16,000. You put more than 16,000 due to the hazard profile of the event and it being in a 100-year event. Kilauea has an easier job of successfully managing eruption, with it being such a small eruption and with previous pyroclastic flows, such as pyroclastic flows. Are you mental? There's no pyroclastic flow on a VEI of 0 to 1. It's just lava flow, previous historic lava flows that they know or suggest where the next eruption might be. Okay, so but you've got to be careful there. So I put that as 6. That's knowledge. All right. So all you need to say is, in conclusion, sometimes, regardless how much prep you make, if an event can be predicted or not, no matter what you do, it can still be effective, because you proved with Sendai that with only a 7-foot high sea wall, with a 7-foot high sea wall, the earthquake they survived, but the tsunami swamped them. But because of the plans with 3,000 troops and 3 days and 20-minute plan, and then Kilauea, it's cost 60 million, but they've had 0 deaths, 14 kilometres of road destroyed. All right. Still, I think you're trying to get too much in there to kind of prove your point, but then you're kind of not tying it back to the question enough. So at the end of every paragraph or every theme or point you make, so this meant that you had effective management even though it wasn't protected. So with prediction, there was effective management. So either way, just keep flipping the coin back and forth. Okay? But okay, it's clear, you get the point across. You do have lots of evidence, but be careful in your knowledge in the last bit. So 2.2, effective hazard management during the predicted event. Careful, you can't predict earthquakes, you just leave it during an event. Hazard management was put into action during the event that was prepared by the Indonesian Volcanic Centre. Right, here you're aware, you've written in overview of case study, where it is, what's going on, why is it important in that section, and why some countries can only do prediction before, during or before, not after. Something I just reminded myself of then, I forgot. Hopefully it'll come back to me. Hazard management, oh yeah, that was it. So with Kilauea, it's also really important that you try and use as many geographical terms as possible. So you say basaltic lava on a hotspot, alright, because that tells you the VI is not powerful enough, so it's much easier to manage. So it all ties in together. Merapi is a composite volcano located on the destructive plate boundary between the Indo. See here, this is more like it. Okay, Australian Eurasian plate. It erupted between October and December 2008 with a high VA of 3. Capital letter. You've gone about 2013, but it's actually 2010 you said you were going to focus on. So again, you'd lose marks there because the case studies don't match up. The wealth of Indonesia, having a GDP of 5,000 to 200, had allowed the monitoring system around Merapi to be installed. However, the eruption wasn't actually managed until the eruption occurred. As soon as the eruption occurred, evacuation zones of 5 kilometres were set up with sirens sounded at the base of the volcano, telling people within the restricted zone to run to safety. However, with pyroclastic flows reaching villages past the 5 a.m. and 5 kilometre and 10 kilometre mark, the restriction zone had to be extended to 20 kilometres. Brilliant! That's written really well, it's concise, it has the facts and figures. The only thing that doesn't happen is right at the end, you don't then link it back to the question. So I'll put number 8 here, you need to link back to the question, alright? So this demonstrates that even with prediction in a low-income country, you can have effective management. The government set up evacuation centres for its displaced people. However, these evacuation centres were overwhelmed by the 400,000 refugees, meaning they were cramped and... Well, they're not refugees yet, because we don't know if they've definitely lost their homes. Okay, so just evacuees, meaning they were cramped and running short of food and water. As many people grew unhappy in the centre, they returned home to protect their homes and livestock. This led to an increased number of casualties as people were caught out by the pyroclastic flows from the volcanoes. Right, okay, so now you need to link back to the question. This demonstrates that even with prediction, management strategies can become ineffective when people lose trust or the strategies go wrong and can't cope with the number of people that need erupting because the prediction then fell short because they didn't know how bad the pyroclastic flows were going to be. Got it? Always tie it back to the question. You're forgetting about Peel. Conclusion. In conclusion, effective hazard management was not achieved with many people returning home before they should have, and with eruption at Mount Kilauea currently having read the wrong sheet. With roads into the evacuation zone not being blocked off by the police, so you just comment that they didn't have enough manpower to check everything. However, it wasn't a total disaster with only 352 deaths, with the government offering to pay $3,200 for farmers' crops and livestock to encourage them not to return home. So that's when it tried to return effective again. So they realised there was a problem, it was going wrong, so then they turned it back to being effective. However, more could have been done if preparation were in place before the event to have been able to predict how far the restriction zones were stretched and how many evacuation zones were set up. Now you need to link to another case study. So it could be Kilauea, but then you would talk about hazard profile. Okay, so it's always swings and roundabouts, isn't it? Oh, sorry. Could be this, but then this happens in Kilauea they've got a VI 0, however they've got a pyroclastic flow, they've got a low UDP, which means that people have a choice whether they adjust or leave or do nothing. In this case, some adjusted and others decided to do nothing and went back to their homes. It's the choices that people are prepared to take, or the risk they feel they're in, and whether the management have the salience to follow through on their effective strategies, regardless if it can be predicted or not, because in the case of Sendai, can't be predicted, but people's lives were saved because they trusted what was in force. Does that make sense? Alright, so you're nearly there, it's nearly coming through, but you're right where you've written, you need to use a wide range of connectives. You've got to link it back to the question clearer, okay? So I'll put that as number 9, the tying it back to the question. Right, effective management, hazard management after an event. Don't put was not predicted, because you can predict a tsunami. Well, you can't predict a tsunami, you know when they're coming. I'm so sorry I'm yawning, I'm not tired, I'm just yawning. Okay, we need an overview. Like, let's say the tsunami is a secondary hazard of an earthquake. An earthquake can't be predicted because it's nature. You're going to get a few seconds warning, it's on a subduction zone. Alright, come on, tell the examiner that you know the backstory and you understand what influences this question, because without knowing how a volcano, earthquake, tsunami works or formed, there's no way you can answer this question. So you've got to show off that little bit of knowledge, and this in the overview it allows you to do that. Capital letter, Macaulay, I'm going to go mental on you. The Indian Ocean tsunami occurred on the 26th of December 2004, taking 230,000 lives, recording a magnitude 9 earthquake on the Richter scale with a 10 metre high tsunami. No prediction technology in place led to the terrible consequences of the 1 in 300 year event. On the other hand, the Niragongo eruption with VI over 1 to 2 was predicted by Mr. Wafala and his team of scientists, although the government ignored it, believing it was propaganda against the country, leading to 95 deaths. Macaulay, that overview of those 2 case studies is brilliant. Okay, absolutely brilliant. You could say with a VI of 1 because where it's located, and that's a shield volcano / composite, and then it gets really complicated. You could say it's a composite volcano with basaltic lava, because that helps to explain why it's harder to manage than Kilauea. Okay, right, what you need to do here is, rather than just doing figure 2.0, the disaster management cycle for Niragongo and IoT, you have to put down here, I have demonstrated, just put that like that, I have demonstrated that management strategies can be ineffective if an event is not predicted in figure 2.0. However, I will discuss that they can become effective after an event due to international community aid, that kind of idea. Okay, so you've got all your facts and figures proving your point that this is how they reacted. This is that they had nothing except, Mr. Wafala predicted it, but they chose to ignore it, and this is what they had before, no mitigation or preparation. So let's see if you do an overall. Right, what you need before a sub-conclusion with this is you need a paragraph, so that's 8. Right, so that's number 10, so this will be number 11. You need a paragraph that sums up your model. Okay, you can't expect examiners to figure it out for you. You're going to have to say something that demonstrates that they had nothing, then they had a reaction due to the international community. You know, just highlight what you said. It only has to be like 6 or so lines, but kind of shows that effective management can be effective, even though it's not predicted, when you have international aid and you have X number of schools set up within 3 months of the area. That's effective management, even though it wasn't predicted. That's pure evidence. Okay? So, sub-conclusion. I still conclude that hazard management is seriously effective when an event is not predicted. This is due to the area not knowing what they have to manage and the extent of the damage caused. That's a little weak, Macaulay. Okay? You've basically summed it up saying, that's it. If you can't predict it, you're affected. Severely affected management-wise, but you said with Sendai that you can have effective management even if it's not predicted. So you've completely contradicted yourself. So this is where you say, I have shown that if it can't be predicted and if the government doesn't have strong salience or a strong GDP, then you are seriously at a disadvantage. Or the hazard profile is so immense that it affects in IoT 12 countries and 2 continents that you're overwhelmed and it overrides any of the plans that you'd have in place. Or it could be that densely populated coastlines, isolated communities, subsistence farm workers, they don't actually know what a tsunami is. So all that goes into your sub-conclusion. Plus, you need to link to other case studies. I think this looks like you've run out of time here massively. Okay? Next, conclusion. What happened to your 3.0 conclusion, dude? Let's have a read. In conclusion, the chance of effective hazard management increases when an event is predicted beforehand. This is because an area will know what type of hazard to expect and how best to manage it. Both Kilauea and Sendai have prediction technology before the event. Kilauea's use of prediction technology has led to the successful management of the eruption ongoing since 1993 with 0 deaths. However, in Sendai the death toll is higher prediction